Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I obviously want to express my sentiment for a full and speedy recovery to Senator Grassley, but also for you. I see you're in quite a bit of back pain. I hope you recover quickly. And I'm happy to read Senator Grassley's opening statement. Mr. Chairman, I appreciate your calling today's hearing on housing affordability. In Senator Grassley's 99 county meetings, he regularly hears from Iowans about the lack of housing, especially the price they can afford. I hear the same thing in Wisconsin. I'm sure every senator hears that back in their states as well. While affordable housing is in short supply in many communities, this isn't due to a shortage of federal housing programs. Currently, there are more than 100 housing programs at the federal level costing more than $100 billion per year. This includes over $70 billion in the Department of Housing and Urban Development budget alone. Billions more are provided in programs outside of HUD, including through USDA, the Department of Defense, and the Department of Veterans Affairs. On top of these programs, the tax code includes incentives for home ownership and the construction of low-income housing. There are also government loan guarantees and government-sponsored enterprises to support the housing credit market. Despite this litany of programs, affordable housing concerns remain a perennial issue. In recent years, inflation driven by reckless federal spending under the Biden administration has made problems worse. In 2021, the price of homes increased by the largest amount in the history of the Case-Shiller National Home Price Index at 19.3%, and home prices are up over 32% since Biden took office. While good for homeowners, except for increased property taxes, renters felt the pain with rental prices increasing the third largest amount over the last 100 years in 2022. Rents are now over 19% higher than when Biden took office. Before spending billions more on additional federal housing programs, we should take a good hard look at why existing programs have fallen short. For decades, Senator Grassley has conducted oversight of HUD and local housing agencies, exposing widespread waste, fraud, and abuse. Too often, government overpays for poorly executed projects, and a maze of housing programs creates inefficiencies and a lack of accountability. Senator Grassley has found HUD does very little, if any, oversight of the housing authorities. So they get away with lavish office spending on salaries, vehicles, parties, and travel. All this while poor people wait in line, sometimes for years, for actual housing. Of today's witnesses, Bill Slover knows this all too well from his time exposing waste, fraud, and abuse in our housing programs right here in D.C. While we work to reform and improve our housing programs, the last thing American homebuyers need right now is more budget housing spending, given our dire fiscal situation. As the nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office recognizes, higher debt tends to increase borrowing costs in both the public and private sectors by driving up interest rates. Our current decade's high interest rates aren't only causing taxpayers to pay record amounts of interest on the national debt, but also making it harder to afford a mortgage. This past fall, 30-year mortgage rates peaked at nearly 8%, a 20-year high. Left unchecked, our rapidly rising national debt will continue to place upward pressure on interest rates, making the American dream of homeownership less attainable. Senator Grassley understands the desire to do more to help working families obtain affordable housing, but that won't be achieved simply by throwing money at the problem. In fact, it only makes things worse. We need to start by rooting out the enormous amount of waste, fraud, and abuse. We both welcome all of today's witnesses, and I'll only add, the numbers are actually quite shocking. In January 2021, the 30-year fixed mortgage rate average was 2.65%. That's more than 2.5 times over that now at 6.7%. I think the real shocking number is in Q1 2020, the average monthly payment for a new home was $1,787. Now it's 1.86 times higher than that at $3,322 per month, just under $40,000 a year. Those are shocking numbers, and again, caused by massive government spending, which has turned a dollar that people held at the start of the Biden administration into 85 cents. And from my standpoint, that's one of the primary root causes of a very significant problem, particularly for young people. So again, I appreciate the hearing. Look forward to hearing more about what the root causes are. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, Senator Johnson. I'll introduce the witnesses now. Our first is Ms. Peggy Bailey. She's the Vice President for Housing and Income Security at the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities, and also served in the Biden-Harris administration as Senior Advisor on Rental Assistance to HUD Secretary Marcia Fudge. Welcome, Ms. Bailey. Our second witness is Mrs. Carol Ventura of our own Rhode Island Housing She's the executive director. She has over 30 years of experience in expanding access to housing, building livable communities, and leading economic efforts. She has dedicated her career to helping Rhode Islanders access housing opportunities, and she leads a terrific organization that is very effective. And I actually served on its board for a while as the Director of Business Regulation. So it's wonderful, Carol, to see you here in Washington. Thank you so much for sharing your time and expertise with us. Our next witness will be introduced by our esteemed colleague from the